In this video, I'm going to show you the exact vocal chain plugins I used to turn a vocal recording that sounds like this.
Meet me down by the jetty landing.
Into something that sounds like this.
Meet me down by the jetty landing.
I'm Troy Dean from The Music Nerd. Stay with us. Okay, before we dive into the plugins, I just want to walk you through the signal chain for actually recording the vocal. Then I'm going to play the vocal as it was recorded, and then I'm going to add the plugins one by one and show you what they do. So first and foremost, I recorded the vocal with a pretty good microphone. I'm actually using the AKG C414, which is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. I'm very fortunate. It's not mine. These things are a couple of $1,000s to buy here in Australia. I'm very fortunate that my buddy Bart has this in the studio and he uses it as part of his work, and very fortunate that it just lives here in the vocal booth so I can use it whenever I want. So I'm recording my vocal into the AKG C414. I have a pop filter, and I think I've actually got a windsock on top of it as well. If you check the video I'm referencing here is the cover I did of Reckless by Australian Crawl. And so I'm recording my voice into that, and then I'm recording the microphone into Logic via the Universal Audio Apollo Twin audio interface. Okay, that's the audio interface that I'm using to record my vocal through this microphone. Now, in the Universal Audio Apollo interface, there's a piece of software called Universal Audio Console, which allows you to insert some plugins as you're recording your vocal or guitar or any instrument. The good thing about the Universal Audio interfaces is they actually have a chip inside the piece of hardware that allows you to do some digital signal processing, DSP as it's otherwise called, before it gets to your computer. So what this does is it means you can run plugins that don't chew up CPU usage of your computer. Now the plugin that I'm using as I'm recording my vocal is the Avalon 737, the Avalon VT737, which is essentially a channel strip. And what I've got is I've got a preamp gain turned up quite hot here because it's quite a soft song, Reckless by Australian Crawl. I'm not belting it. I'm really singing quite softly most of the time. You'll notice when I do sing the high notes or the louder notes, I back off the microphone. So I've really cranked the gain up here. I'm compressing just a tiny bit, not much. I just want to compress a little bit to make sure that I don't actually peak. I've got a tiny bit of EQ on the high, mid, and the treble just to brighten the vocal up a little bit. And that's it. That's all I'm doing on the vocal as I'm recording it into Logic, okay? It's coming from the vocal booth in through the Universal Audio Apollo Twin. I'm using the Avalon VT737 in real time to record these settings. So what you're seeing here, these settings that I'm recording are the settings that are going to tape, so to speak, actually going into Logic, but that's what we call going to tape. And so now I'm going to play that recording as it is, and then I'm going to turn the plugins on one by one and show you what I've done. So this is the signal chain here, really, is the Avalon VT737 as the channel strip, and then I'll show you what I've done once I've recorded the vocal to make it sound like a broadcast quality vocal. So here's the vocal as it's recorded through the Avalon 737.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
Okay, so the first thing I've done is put a noise gate on this channel to make sure that any mouth noises or breaths or other noises in the vocal booth aren't impacted by what I'm about to do on this channel, which is add EQ, compression, some reverb and delay. And I don't want any mouth noises or breaths or other ambient noises in the vocal booth to be impacted by the compression and the reverb and the delay, right? Like I certainly don't want to compress and delay and reverb some mouth clicks. So I've got a noise gate here, and as I play this track, you'll see the noise gate open and close.
Meet me down by the jetty landing.
So when the noise gate is closed, no vocal is coming through the signal path and is not going to be passed through to the EQ or the compressor or whatever happens next. When the noise gate is open, then the vocal recording is being allowed through. That's the purpose of a noise gate. It literally opens and lets the noise through, and then when it's below this 35 dB, minus 35 dB threshold, it closes and it doesn't allow any noise through.
Where the pontoons bump and spray.
So not really impacting the sound of the vocal at all, just cleaning it up and making sure nothing else gets through. Now I'm going to turn on the EQ. Now I'm just using the stock EQ in Logic here. By the way, I will say this, I have a bit of an addiction to buying audio plugins, so please don't look at all the plugins I'm using and think that you have to buy these types of plugins to achieve this kind of result. You could pretty much achieve what I'm doing here just by using the stock plugins with whatever DAW you're using. They all come with great plugins these days. I just like playing around with plugins for fun. I'm using the stock channel EQ here in Logic with one of the stock settings called Male Vocal Refresh, and I'll play the track and then I'll turn it on and show you what it sounds like.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
So what I'm doing is I'm really brightening up the recording here by adding about, I don't know, 3 or 4 dB at a kind of 1600, and then this kind of shelf here that boosts up to around about 12K. I'm adding about 4 dB here just to boost the top end of my vocals so that it's a bit clearer. And I've also rolled off everything below 100 Hertz because that's just bottom end rumble that you don't want to hear. I've got a little bit of a push here around about 300 Hertz and a tiny dip about 350 just to clean up those lower mids. Now that's a default setting in the stock EQ in Logic, so I didn't design that EQ setting, it just is one of the defaults. Now here's where most of the magic happens on this track. I'm using a plugin here by Waves called Silk Vocal, and this is essentially a 3-band EQ and a compressor built into one. It's a little bit of a lazy trick. You can spend hours getting EQ and compression to play nicely with each other. I'm going to show you why I use this plugin, because it has these presets that I really love. In the preset menu here, you'll see it has a whole bunch of presets here. The one that I used to begin with was just called Raw to Pro Male, and it literally takes a raw male vocal and makes it sound pro. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, or what it sounds like. And then I've come down here to one of the artist presets, Lou Diaz, and I'm using a male lead vocal setup. I'll come back to that one in a moment, okay? So let me just go to the Raw to Pro Male, and I'll play the track, and then I'll turn this on and have a listen to what it does.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
So it boosts the volume a lot because I've got this compressor here. This is also giving me quite a lot of top end, a little bit of mid, and quite a boost in the bottom end as well. I'll just go back and play that section again, and I'll go between this Raw to Pro setting and then the setting that I used from Lou Diaz. I hope I'm saying the name correctly there.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
So not a lot of difference really between those two. A little bit more compression on the raw to pro, a little bit more mid. I could come in here, I'll go back to raw to pro, have another listen to that one.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
Not a lot of difference between those two. You could use either one. But for the sake of this exercise and just to be authentic with the promise of the video, I'm going to go back to the one I was using, which is the male lead vocal setup. So that's kind of my EQ and my compression taken care of. What I want to do now is just to try and replicate the recording, the original recording of this by Australian Crawleys, add some delay and reverb. I always add my delay before my reverb because you don't want to delay reverb, but it's okay to wetten delay, if that's a word. So the delay I'm using is the Echo Boy. I can't remember where I got this from Sound Toys, there you go. I'm just using an analog vocal slapper. It's off, I'll play some of the track and then I'll turn it on.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
So literally just adding a back slap to the vocal. And then the final plugin here is I'm going to turn on the Lexicon 480L, which is a universal audio plugin, which is a beautiful reverb. Now, importantly here, I've got the wet solo button turned off. Typically what happens with these reverbs is that you'll operate them in wet solo mode if you've got them on an auxiliary, and then so you're getting the full version of that reverb. And then what you can do is you can route some of the vocal or some of your guitar or some of your kick drum or whatever the instrument is into that auxiliary to get a little bit of that reverb. Well, in this case, I've got this reverb directly on the vocal channel, so I don't want it in wet solo mode. I've got it in mix mode and I'm running at about 25%. If I mouse over mix dry there, you'll see I'm running at about 25%. So only 25% of this reverb is getting picked up on this channel. Let's have a listen to it.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
And the preset here I'm using is Ultimate Vocal Plate. I didn't touch that, apart from turning wet solo off and putting it into mix mode. That's the only change I made to that setting. So let's have a listen again to the vocal recording as it was recorded, and then I'll activate all the plugins. I've got this toy here called the Nectar Panorama CS12, which is a single channel controller for Logic. I'll make another video about that another time. But one cool thing it allows me to do is disable all the plugins at once on a channel and then re-enable all the plugins at once. So I'll try that now, and you can have a listen to the vocal recording without any plugins on, and then I'll turn them all on at once and see the difference. Hear the difference, I should say.
Meet me down by the jetty landing, where the pontoons bump and spray.
All right, so there you go. Just to recap, a noise gate. Sorry, recording the vocal through a good quality microphone. Doesn't have to be a $2,000 AKG microphone. I've got a Behringer B150, I think it's called, I picked up for $150. I've also got the Rode NT1, but recording your vocal through a nice condenser microphone, the best condenser microphone that you can afford really, is the first step. And then putting that through some kind of EQ and compression before it hits the tape, just to make sure that you're not getting any clipping. And then what I've done here is just put a noise gate as the very first plugin, and then some EQ, then the Silk Vocal plugin by Waves, which is again a bit of EQ and compression in one, then the delay with the Echo Boy, and then some reverb with the Universal Audio Lexicon. Now, interesting fun fact here. My friend Paul Gildae actually played in James Reyne's band for about 5 years as one of the guitar players. Another guy on YouTube I follow, Brett Kingman, is also James Reyne's guitar player and has been for years. I saw them recently live in Adelaide, and Brett Kingman is just an incredible guitar player. James Reyne's an amazing singer. It was a great performance. Paul played in the James Reyne band many, many years ago, And he saw this video and he commented on how great the vocal tone was. And that's why I wanted to make this video just to share what I've done here. So I hope that helps you with your vocal recordings, and I hope that helps you enjoy more music. Hit the like, share, subscribe button. I'm Troy Dean from The Music Nerd. I'll see you in the next video.